Okay, there we go. Cool. Welcome everyone. Can't believe we're already on our last session. It's gone by so quickly. One second, let me get my lights set up. Okay. All right. Cool. Let me go ahead and share the slides. As always, you can find the slides with the exclamation mark slides command. I'm gonna pull them up myself. All right. Hey Willow. All right, sounds good. Wait, what the heck? No, there it is. Okay, cool. I think we can probably start. Wait, there we go. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So, yes, web developing is good. We all love web developing. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for joining so late. All right, let's dive into it. I know that it's late for some of y'all, so I don't want to take up too much time. But today's session is pretty comprehensive. I basically just wanted to boil down kind of all the career prep advice I've gotten over the years and what I found worked and what didn't work, all in one presentation. So, yeah, this is our final presentation. So pretty sad, but also really happy that so many of you guys stuck around and were able to kind of follow through the whole time. So give yourselves a big pat on the back. All right, so this is our agenda for today. We're going to be talking about just a high level overview, and then we're going to talk about kind of like the state of tech right now. We're going to talk about kind of the differences between what an unsuccessful and successful job searches kind of look like. Talk about the roles you'll be applying for, and then we'll just talk about some specific job search stuff. Okay, I guess we'll kick it off with the entry level job situation in tech. So, as many people here know, tech is having some difficult hiring times right now. Just a few days ago, well, was it yesterday? Maybe just like 2 days ago, Google and a bunch of other tech companies laid off tens of thousands of workers. And layoffs have been kind of continuing from like November, December of last year. So I'm just going to get right to the point. And it's, with all those layoffs happening, it's safe to say that it has gotten much harder to land an entry level job, right? And not these companies are still hiring, but a lot of them have implemented hiring freezes. A lot of them are still laying off people, as we know, and tech companies in general are just trying to slim down. So they're not not a lot of tech companies are aggressively hiring, and those that are generally aren't aggressively hiring for entry level. So this makes this harder, is what I'm basically trying to communicate first and foremost. But this doesn't mean that all is lost, right? You just need to know what to expect. The first thing is that you should expect extended periods of searching for jobs, right? Realistically, I would say you want to prepare for 6 to 12 months of prepping and searching. So we'll get to what that looks like in a sec. But before, like 4 years ago, I would say this time period was probably like a lot, usually shorter, but that was in a different market. Right now, I would say these days you should prepare for at least 6 to 12 months. The other thing to expect is you should be willing to accept contract, part-time, or even intern positions. And the reason why I say this up front is because your immediate goal for this first job is actually just to get that initial experience on your resume so you can find a better role the next time the job market improves, right? Basically, the biggest obstacle for you is not having that first experience, right? Which is kind of like the catch 22 of entry level roles, right? They all say they want experience, but if it's entry level role, like who has experience for that? So that's why I would say like in this market, it's better to just kind of accept what you can get, even though that might not seem like the ideal attitude to have. I'm just saying that's like a temporary mindset for you to get over the hump of having no like real experience on your resume, just to get something on there, because the second time around it's going to be a lot easier just having that one bit of experience. And so what I want to go into next is I've been coaching people through job searches for quite a few years, and I find that most of them end up looking like this. So this is kind of what I see most entry level job searches looking like. So this person, let's call them, I don't know, person A, they maybe created a few small toy projects during bootcamp or university. They maybe spent maybe like a few weeks, maybe less, practicing a couple of LeetCode problems here and there. And they prepared their job search materials like their LinkedIn, their resume, cover letter, etc. But they spent an unusual amount of time working on their portfolio and resume. Maybe they just wanted the design to be really good. Maybe they just kept feeling it's not good enough. I don't know. But a lot of them spend a lot of time on their portfolio and resume. They also applied to typically hundreds of positions on sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, just all online applications. And what usually happens is if you apply to hundreds of positions like this, you'll probably get a follow-up call or email from about like 10 of them. And a lot of them will ghost you naturally. And then of those remaining ones, you might land a technical interview with a few of them, but maybe they just didn't get an offer, right? And so what happens is that these people are often dejected and pretty demotivated after about 6 to 8 months of this, right? There's only so many job applications you can put out before this starts to really impact your morale. And then what happens is that they give up and they go back to their previous job that they did before doing the bootcamp or program, or they enroll in another bootcamp or program, right? This has happened to so many people I know. And, there's nothing wrong with this, I guess, but I think there's a better way, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like when we look at this flow, yes, this is what most people's searches look like. But I think the fact that so many of them ended up in them giving up means that there's probably a better way to go about this. So what I think your job search should actually look like is something like this. First, instead of just having a few small toy projects, I think it's actually better to spend a few months working on 1 to 2 real big projects that actually wow your friends and family. And additionally, for LeetCode, it's probably best to spend about, just 15 to 30 minutes of a day working on some new LeetCode or coding interview problem, right? So already we see some differences between person B here and person A, right? B is optimizing more for their projects and also kind of consistently doing LeetCode, whereas person A didn't, focus as much on that. And so for person B, when they're preparing their job search materials, they don't over optimize for their portfolio and resume because those are not the most important things. They spend just enough time on their portfolio and resume to make it clean and concise. But yeah, they don't like over optimize it. They don't spend like weeks of time on it. Another thing that maybe person B does is that they create a spreadsheet called a job application tracker, and maybe they fill it up with like 30 to 50 companies. They apply to all of these companies, not online, but using cold recruiter outreach or by referral. And then what happens is that they end up getting a follow-up call with about 70% of them, right? This is a massive difference from person A, who probably only got a follow-up call from like 1% of them, 1% of the jobs they apply to. And it's because applying online is just not very effective. And so I have a whole slide dedicated to that in a second. And what happens is like, once you have a lot more follow-up calls, this means you get a lot more interviews, and maybe person B through this method is able to land a few offers. So person B applied to less companies, right? They applied to maybe to 30 to 50 versus person A applied to hundreds. But a lot of the times I see people who take the path of person B, they have a lot more successful job search process. They get burnt out less quickly. They find a job quicker. And using this method, they can potentially get better jobs than they would be open to if they went with person A's approach. So we're going to be spending the rest of the time talking about kind of each of the steps in person B's flow and why it's so effective compared to person A. But first, really quick, I just want to talk about roles, right? Here in this bootcamp, we've been learning web development. And, you can spend all day talking about terms of web development. When it gets down to it, I think the roles that you'll mostly be applying to have the word front end in them, right? They're usually front end web developer, front end developer, something like that, right? You can also apply to full stack positions, but usually these require a few more years of experience not all the time, but usually, and usually they're harder to land. So it's up to you. But I think if you're trying to maximize your rate of application to like getting replied to an interview, then front end web developer I think is most of the positions you'll end up applying for. Specifically on job searching sites, since presumably you all are now familiar with React, I recommend you search for by keyword, so for React or JavaScript roles, and then you'll get a list of positions that are best suited for you, right? Instead of just typing in front end web developer, because that might give you like, I don't know, Ruby or like other languages, besides JavaScript, that you probably aren't really interested in. So I find by searching by technologies that you use, that's a little bit of a little trick to make it more effective. And yeah, as mentioned earlier, in this market, you shouldn't just only be looking for full-time roles, right? You should also be open to part-time or contract positions as well to maximize your chance of getting that first experience on your resume. Okay, so let's talk about a general checklist that you're going to run through when it's time for you to actually say, I'm starting my job search, right? So the checklist looks like this. You need at least one big project, right? I greatly prefer projects that are like launched in some way. Like if you share them on your own social media or you post them on like, Reddit Product Hunt, that's another good way of getting exposure. Like, recruiters and people working at those companies can see that stuff. So it might give you a higher chance of getting a job. It also just teaches you more if you build something and actually put it out there for real use. So, but that's optional, right? As long as you just have one big project, even if you don't share it, that's still better than a lot of people. Another thing you want to make sure you have down is that you've spent some time, usually like 1 to 2 months, practicing LeetCode or technical problems daily, right? And I recommend daily because daily is just the best way to build a habit, right? If we only do LeetCode like once a week, which is what I did in my job search, so I don't recommend that. You end up just becoming rusty really quick, and also you forget. Like there's be on and off weeks where I would do LeetCode and I would forget, and it just wasn't as effective as if I did it every single day, even just for like a couple minutes. And if you ever plan on applying to Google or Meta, you definitely want to do LeetCode problems. You probably want to double this amount, like maybe do LeetCode technical problems daily for 2 to 3 months or 2 to 4 months if you're planning on applying to Google or Meta, because these companies, they really, really over-index on these interview problems. I would also go through interview study guides. So I've linked, I think, one of the best ones here called the Front End Interview Handbook. So this is available in the slides if you want it. But these are just very comprehensive guides talking about all the other interview questions you might run into. You also have to prepare your job search materials. So this means your LinkedIn, your resume, your portfolio, maybe your GitHub, maybe. I mark these two as optional because you don't have to have a portfolio site if you're a developer. You don't have to have like a fine-tuned GitHub if you're a developer. Like I think a lot of people say you do, but I don't know. In the real world, I have yet to find a lot of examples of those two actually being the difference, right? Of someone getting an interview or not. So I would say like really just focus on your LinkedIn and resume. Just make sure those are good. But like I said earlier, do not over-index on these things, right? These are not as important as this stuff up here, right? You definitely want to focus on your projects, as many as possible, that are good, over indexing on like job search materials, because that is like, it is important, but you don't have to spend a ton of time on them. The other thing we'll talk about is preparing your job application tracker. So we talked about this earlier. This is like a spreadsheet, and I'll show you exactly what this looks like in a sec. And the final thing in your checklist is make sure you understand the right way to apply to jobs, right? We hinted at this earlier, comparing person A to person B, right? Person A did the online application approach, person B did not. So we'll talk about how to be kind of more like person B. Okay, so let's start with talking about the one big project. So basically, using all the technologies that you've learned here, you don't have to use the technologies that we learned here, but I would prefer you do. You should build and deploy one big project, trademark. And basically, this big project, this is not true for everyone. It doesn't have to, match these conditions, but these are like preferred. Ideally, you find an idea that gets you somewhat excited, because then you're more motivated to work on it for longer and make it better. So examples are like building an app that you wish you had. So like, I don't know, a productivity tracker or like a Chrome extension or a mobile app, anything, right? Now you have the skills to actually do these things and build an app that you wish you had. The other way to go about it is you could also just build something on top of a cool technology, right? We did this a little bit by working with AI technologies like GPT-3, right? DALL-E. We didn't touch 3GS, but that's another really cool one too for building 3D apps. So just building projects on top of those technologies, even if you're not as passionate about what the actual product is, it could still be a really fun way to learn new things and have a really amazing project that wows people. So ideally, you want to spend at least 1 to 2 months on these projects, and you could build multiple, right? Just I don't recommend building more than three. I think 1 to 2 is the sweet spot for like maximum like value, I guess. So you definitely want to spend a good amount of time dedicated on this project, right? This means this is going to mean a lot of struggling, a lot of googling, but that is like the best way to get better at software engineering, right? Building the mini projects that we did already, those are helpful, but nothing compares to like the feeling you get when you finish your first big project by yourself. I feel like you just get this feeling of like, oh, it's all coming together, right? It really starts to make sense, the process of web development. So that's why I recommend. And yeah, this whole process, this will accelerate your skills and confidence as a dev more than anything else you'll do. So definitely take this. If you take one thing away from this presentation, is focus on that one big project. This will also be your most valuable asset in your future job search, right? Like when I look at resumes, or when I did look at resumes, people look at a ton of resumes, right? People who are recruiters and stuff like that. So they usually just focus on the top one, the most impressive one, because that tells them a lot about you. And yeah, this project is what you're going to show off to recruiters and people that you encounter that you try to network with to get a job. Optionally, you can also increase your reach by sharing it on social media platforms and sharing platforms, right? So the social media, of course, is like your Instagram, Twitter, whatever, TikTok. You could also share it on like, there are platforms that are kind of designed for sharing things. Reddit is a good example. Product Hunt is another. This just like, you're basically sharing on these platforms not for the goal of getting number one or number one product of the day. You're just trying to get people to use it, right? It's nice to put something out there, get feedback on it to people you don't know. It's scary, definitely. I will say it's very scary, but that is going to increase your reach so much. On Twitter, like people who build very publicly and share projects a lot, I find that they're able to switch jobs very quickly because lots of people know them, right? Not lots of people see the projects that they're building. And yeah, sometimes like someone from Spotify reaches out saying, hey, we have a new position. Like having that reach definitely helps. But I know this is not like the best for everyone, right? If you're pretty introverted, you're not a big fan of sharing, then this might not be as comfortable. But I will say, like, if you're open to sharing your work, it's something that it rewards you a lot later down the line. Okay, let's talk about the coding interview. So the coding interview itself, there's a lot more I could talk about here. I'm just going to start off by saying you should definitely check out these 3 resources. LeetCode, which I think we've talked about already, the book Cracking the Coding Interview, and the Front-End Developer Interview Handbook. I believe Cracking the Coding Interview, you have to pay for the physical book, but this one, the Front-End Developer Interview Handbook, this one's free. This is all open source and on GitHub. So definitely check those out. And to practice for the coding interview, I would recommend doing this while you're building your big project, right? Maybe you spend a couple hours a day working on your project. Maybe you dedicate 15 to 30 minutes a day doing one interview problem, right? This will reward you a lot, not just make you a better programmer, but it'll make you a lot more confident for interviews. And the other thing to mention is that when you're doing these problems in LeetCode and you're doing problems in the book or whatever, I want you to practice planning and talking through the problem first before you actually code your solution. This is extremely important and sometimes overlooked, and because I think what a lot of people don't mention about coding interviews is that a lot of companies, sometimes they don't care if you get it right, like if you get the problem right. I know that kind of sounds silly, but like in real life, what interviewers most of the time are looking for is your thought process. So if you explain your solution really well and then execute it, that is like stellar performance, right? That is what they're looking for. If you don't communicate with the interviewer at all and you just solve the problem, and even though it's correct, like even though you solved the problem and on paper it looks like you did well, the interviewer might not see that as a good sign because they might be like, oh, like this person, might have some red flags for communication, or like thinking out loud, and you just don't want that, right? So that's why it's best to practice actually talking out the plan for your solution first before diving into any real code, because I want you to emulate that not only when you're practicing but in the real interview as well, and you'll be surprised how far it will get you. And if you can, like if you have any friends or peers that are software engineers, and ask them if they can do a mock interview with you. That helps so much, right? Having a practice interview before you go into a real thing. There are also online services that allow you to do this as well, but definitely friends are the ideal option if you have any that are engineers. Okay, so let's talk about creating your job application tracker. Excuse me. Let me get some water really quick, actually. Okay, I am back. Okay, so creating your job application tracker. Definitely one of the early things you want to do after you've prepped your project, after you prepped your job search materials, is create your job application tracker. So this is basically just a spreadsheet with the following headers. You have like the job title, the company that you're applying to, the link to the job listing, if there is one, tier, like basically how much you value this job, like how excited you'd be if you got an offer, and status, like what is the current status of this job? Have you applied to it? Have you got an offer, etc. And what I want you to do is go to job sites like Indeed and LinkedIn and find about 30 job listings that you qualify for. Another thing to mention here is you should probably find job listings that are within your area of reach, right? If you're going for only remote jobs, then only add remote listings. If you live in New York, and you should add New York City listings, right? Definitely just try to add as many as possible, but I find 30 is a good amount to start with. So you're gonna find about 30 of these job listings, and I think another thing to mention is that a lot of these listings, they're gonna say they require 2 to 3 years of job experience, right? That's a very common requirement for entry-level jobs. And in my experience, this is one of the least strict requirements in a job listing. This might sound crazy to some people that I'm saying, like you don't have to believe that they actually want those years of experience, because sometimes they do, but most of the time, if you have really good projects and you apply in the ways that we'll discuss, this requirement I haven't found to be a huge blocker to many people, as long as you have strong projects and you've gotten in through a referral or something. And another thing is that these 30 job listings that you source do not apply online to any of them. You do not want to apply to them, at least online, right? We're basically just going through, grabbing all these listings, and you want to add these listings to your spreadsheet. Also give each one a tier, right? If you really want to work for Airbnb, right, give the Airbnb job listing, if you find one, give that like a tier 1, right? Make that a top tier. If there's like another, like, I don't know, small company that you don't really care about that much, or maybe you're not as excited about their product, and you see a listing from them, give it like a low tier, like tier 3, right? And basically what you're going to do is you're going to start by applying through referral or direct connection to the lowest tier 1s, right? You're going to start with your tier 3s, right? The ones you care about the least, and you're going to work your way up. Like you're going to start applying to the tier 3 ones, and then the tier 2 ones and tier 1 ones. And this is because job searching is kind of like a muscle, right? Everyone's first interview when they get into a job search, it pretty much never goes well. I mean, I can speak from my own experience, and many people I know, it's just like you think you're prepared, but it's if you haven't interviewed for a long time, or you never interviewed before, it's pretty tough, right, to nail that first interview. So it'd be a shame if let's say your dream job was Spotify, if you got an interview for Spotify as your first interview, that might not actually be a good thing, right? Even though you're getting interviewed to your dream job, this is just because you haven't interviewed before at any other companies, it's not very likely you're going to ace it, right? So you basically you might even squander your chance with Spotify in that case. But using this method, by working up through your job application tracker from the lowest tier jobs, then you're actually preparing yourself to maximize your chances of getting that job at Spotify. You know what I mean? Yes, exactly. It's terrible. I know. Like it's kind of sad to lecture about this stuff because job application is just it's such a it's one of those things like in the slides it seems clear, but I know in practice, yeah, it's a slog, right? Job apps, it sucks. But using this method, I find this is like one of the better ways to like warm yourself up, right? The first interview, if you bomb it, it's okay, right? It's not a great feeling, of course, but you remember that, those were your tier three companies. Like those were just ones you didn't prioritize the most, and that's okay, right? So that's the whole point of this exercise, to not only maximize your chance of getting an interview or offer, but also building up that muscle. So that's the rationale behind this method. And this is a screenshot of like what my real job tracker looked like. This is back when I was I just graduated from Galvanize, their data science bootcamp. And this is, I think, a screenshot from my actual job tracker where in this case, these were machine learning engineer jobs that are a little different, but it's the same rationale, right? I would go on Indeed and LinkedIn. I would look up, machine learning engineer jobs, and I would just kind of find as many as possible and list them on my job tracker, right? So these are all the tier one companies, but for jobs that I didn't care about as much, I would give a tier three. Make sure to include the link, and the link made it really easy for me to go and check like what the requirements are and all that. I also included additional difficulty optionally. Like this is not really necessary, but it could help. And then also have a status, right? So if I got rejected from a job, I would put rejected. So if I'm not quite applying yet, but I'm getting ready, I would say studying, so forth, right? This was just a really easy way for me to track all of my applications. Yeah, this is Notion. There's actually a link to the tracker if you want one of yourself here in the slides, but I can share it in Twitch as well. But yeah, you can. I mean, this doesn't have to be in Notion, right? Your spreadsheet could be wherever. It could be in Google Sheets. It could be like on Excel. It doesn't matter, right? I just prefer to use Notion for everything, so that's why I have it here. But yeah, you're welcome to duplicate my template if you want to use it in Notion as well. Okay, so yeah, applying to jobs. So this is my spiel on applying to jobs. If you take another thing, the second takeaway I want you to get away from this presentation is never apply online to an entry-level job. There are probably exceptions to this rule that I've said, so like absolutely, but I can't think of any at the moment. You should pretty much almost never apply to an online entry-level job, especially. And this is because of automated screeners. All job sites like LinkedIn, Indeed, etc. Actually, pretty much all of them use automated screeners. And these automated screeners are designed to weed out as many candidates as possible. And for people with no experience, guess what? Those are the people that are most at risk of being weeded out by the screener, right? So I know there are a lot of TikToks and hacks about like how to get past these automated screeners. Trust me, you don't want to deal with that, and just accept the fact that these screeners are actively working against you as an applicant. Sorry, really quick question in the chat. What if I started at a company as a fresher 2 years ago? That's good. I mean, if you're already at a company, like having that one experience, it helps a lot, right? But for people with no experience at all, that's definitely like a lot harder to move up, unless I'm misunderstanding your question in some way. But yeah, so for entry-level jobs, like applying online, you're directly competing against tens of thousands of other people, sometimes more, depending on the job, right? So basically, as soon as you submit the application online, you're basically, imagine you're in a room with like 10,000 other people and you're all duking it out to get an interview. That's basically what it's like. And this means if you apply online for 1,000 jobs, you'll probably get like an interview, right, with 20 to 30 of them. And if you think about what this does to your morale, it sinks it extremely quickly. It's really demoralizing to feel like you're putting in a lot of work, which you are, with putting in 1,000 job applications and only hearing back for 20 to 30 of them. Like, imagine how that would make you feel. It's pretty demoralizing, and that's the exact opposite of what you want in your job search, right? A job search is like a marathon. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint at all. Sprinting through your job search is the fastest way to get burnt out and demoralized, which you do not want, right? So basically, this is all of this to say, do not apply online to any entry-level jobs. Instead, what you want to do is save your energy and time by reducing the amount of jobs you apply to, but only applying via cold recruiter outreach or getting a referral. So let's talk about what these mean. So cold recruiter outreach. This means when you find the listing that you're interested in, you use LinkedIn to find the recruiter or hiring manager for the position that you want and message them directly there. Message or email them. This is a lot more effective at getting your resume in front of a recruiter. This doesn't always work, but what this does is basically the recruiter, they're staring at Indeed, it's like the company portal, and they see like 10,000 applications in a pile, right? What reaching out to people directly does, it helps you kind of establish a little bit more personal connection, not that much more since it's still like, virtual over LinkedIn DM. But I find that like recruiters are pretty active on LinkedIn, and they'll usually be pretty quick to respond if you're a good match or not. So try this technique and let me know if it does increase the amount of reach you get. So that's one way. The second way that has worked really well for me and many others I know is this method of getting referrals. Getting a referral basically means using LinkedIn or Blind to find someone that works at the company that you're trying to apply for and basically just strike up a conversation. Don't ask them directly first, hey, can I get a referral? Because that's guaranteed to get you ghosted. You should usually just let's say you're trying to apply as a software engineer to Spotify, reach out to like 10 to 20 software engineers at Spotify on LinkedIn and just ask them questions like, hey, like, would you be down to like answer a few questions about your job? You're still going to get ghosted by a lot, but chances are like one or two is going to respond. And then they'll probably quickly catch on that you're looking for a referral, and they hopefully will offer to refer you themselves. So that's on LinkedIn. On Blind, there are threads and posts of people. I think they're called referral threads, where they're like, hey guys, if your company is hiring for referrals, like drop your name and let people DM you. And there'll be people from like Microsoft, Google, whatever, like dropping messages saying, hey, like just reach out to me if you want a referral to my company, whatever. So they're basically like giving them away. And if we think about like why would they do that, right? Why would they give away referrals? A lot of big tech companies give bonuses for referrals. So let's say I worked at Microsoft. Well, I don't know if they still do this because they just laid off a bunch of people, but let's say I worked at Microsoft and I refer you to Microsoft. If you get hired, this means I get several $1,000s as a bonus. So that's good, right? It's basically a win-win for us. So that's why this referral method, it really only works best in big tech companies where the employees are incentivized to give referrals. So you shouldn't feel bad about reaching out to these people because, yeah, if they get a referral bonus, then, it's a win-win for them. The worst thing that can happen is that they just say, no, I'm not going to refer you, or they just ghost you, right? And that's not a huge deal. So I would say using these two methods, if you only use these two methods to apply, you'll find that your application to interview rate is going to go up a lot. This is just a lot more effective, and you'd be surprised how many people don't do this. So it does slow the amount of jobs you apply to. Like, it is faster to just churn out like 10 online job applications easy, but just remember that you're basically just throwing all of those applications into the wind. It's better to be a little bit more deliberate and take time to maximize your chance of getting an interview by using these two methods. And I didn't even mention like the main reason why these two methods are superior to applying online. With these two methods, you pretty much never run into automated screeners. When you apply for your referral, you usually apply on a different site than the original job site. And if you apply via a recruiter, you just could directly get your resume in the hands of recruiters. You basically skip over the step where the automated screener could weed you out. So that already puts you ahead of the pack, so to speak. So that's why these two methods are so efficient. They're basically just ways to bypass the screener step. Okay, so takeaways. I know, we're almost wrapping up here, but I just wanted to basically sum up the takeaways because, like I said earlier, there's only a couple of things I really want you to take away from today. I just try to add as much detail as can. First and foremost, job searching is a marathon, right? Not a sprint. Definitely, that is like the number one takeaway. In this market, you're looking at 6 to 12 months of prepping and searching. So mentally prepare yourself and physically as well, right? If you have to calculate savings and how long you can go for, definitely plan for a longer time range of searching if possible. And second thing is building amazing projects and sharing them online is probably the fastest way to both improve as a developer and land a great job. Before starting your job search officially, spend some time, like 1 to 2 months, building one big final project, combining everything we've learned, and ideally share it on social media, share it on like Product Hunt, Reddit, etc. Send it to me. I'll retweet it and I'll signal boost it if I can. But yeah, you definitely want to spend some time kind of taking everything you've learned and putting together a project of your own. You'll just feel a lot of ownership over it, and you'll feel a lot more confident in yourself. So the third takeaway is never apply online for a job unless the company requires it for some reason. Instead, always apply via cold outreach to the recruiter or get a referral. Just these are a lot more efficient and will save you a lot of time. Interviewing is a muscle that you have to train. So start with the companies that you prioritize the least and then work your way up. And in this market, you should be willing to accept maybe a lower tier position or a contract or part-time position. Maybe that's not something that's optimal to you, but you should be willing to accept that if it means getting that initial experience on your resume, right? Having that first experience is so important and such a big blocker to so many bootcamp grads and CS grads, right, who you're competing against. Okay, so that is basically it. I know today was kind of shorter than usual, but there's not much coding today. Today was just kind of slides and overview. Just want to take some time to answer any questions I missed or questions you guys might have. But yeah, that's basically the end of the slides there. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. We'll spend like a few minutes seeing if any questions come up, and then we will conclude for today. Will VOD be available? Yes. So I guess going forward, since this is our last Twitch stream for some time, follow on YouTube. I'm just adding use the exclamation mark YouTube command. All the YouTube videos, all the recordings will be updated on YouTube. We're actually going to also take some time to kind of improve the recordings on YouTube. We're going to do some trimming. We're going to update the description with the slides and stuff. Basically stuff I should have been doing all along, but I just haven't had time. So apologies there. But yes, everything on YouTube will be uploaded by today. So all the videos I think should be up to date, all the VODs. And then at some point in the future, we're going to go through and edit them. Yeah, for sure. Hopefully this was helpful. Do let me know if you have any questions or just want to kind of chat about anything web dev related, but I'm happy to talk more. So someone asked a really good question here. Does collaborative projects also, are they considered like one big final project? A few months ago, I got an opportunity to work on a Java private Minecraft project that has been running for 8 years. Yeah, so if you're talking about like basically a group project, like working either with a small group of developers or like contributing to a big open source project with like hundreds of other developers, I think it does. Like I in my head, like I think the one big project you should aim to do end to end by yourself. But that being said, like those collaborative projects are also very helpful. They're useful for showing that, hey, you can work with other devs, and they're really, really valuable for like learning from how professional devs do things. But I think for the context of this presentation, the one big final project you should aim to build by yourself from the ground up, because something about owning something end to end, it just gives you a lot of more context, right? Rather than just working on one piece of a project, which can teach you a lot, you'll just learn a lot more, I think, doing something end to end by yourself. So basically what I'm trying to say is like that collaborative project, I think is definitely something you want to highlight in your resume, but also consider that it would boost your own skill set a lot and resume if you took time to really build one from ground up. Have any examples of the types of projects that we should be choosing for our big project? How big? Yeah, that's a good question. That's kind of hard to define exactly. I can give some examples from my own life and from the students I've taught before. I think typically what we see for these big projects is like you usually build, I think the most common iteration of these one big projects is basically a spin on a service that already exists. So for example, my one big project back in 2014 was basically Yelp, but for daycares. So it was basically just Yelp, but it only worked for daycares. So it had like, interactive map and a list view and a card view and all that. Basically, just think Yelp, but just instead of restaurants, we did daycares. And that is an example of like, that project wasn't like, we didn't have all the features of Yelp. We just had the main ones. And that wasn't too bad to build, right? It took us like maybe 2-3 weeks to put the whole thing together. So like, like a YouTube for snowboarding, a Reddit for X, like those examples are the most common version of like what I think is like one big project. But really, like, using GPT-3 or DALL-E, I think almost anything you build with those technologies could be considered pretty cool and big, just because that is what is super hype right now. And so a lot of people know that AI is really cool, but not a lot of people can build things on top of it. But now you can, right? So I think if you build things with those technologies, like even just spend a few weeks and you put it out there, that could be something that would replace like a huge end-to-end project. But yeah, hopefully those examples help. Like I'm trying to think of other ones I might have, but if you just go off the framework of thinking of like, popular service for X, that's a good way to start churning ideas for like the relative size of a project. But you don't want to make it like impossibly big. You just want to make it like, good enough that you can deploy it and people can use it. I would also say don't make it too big. Sometimes this is something I make a mistake a lot. Like if you scope out a project that's too big and it takes like several months to build, that could hurt you actually more than help, because sometimes you'll just lose motivation along the way because you'll see how far you are from the finish line for building such a big project. So definitely like come up with an idea, but then scope it down a lot is what I would say. Oh yeah, sorry about that. So the syllabus section in the Notion is saying a lot of the sections are blank. What's the best way to utilize this bootcamp? Yeah, so the Notion page hasn't been updated in a long time. That's really on me. Sorry about that. I would say the best way to utilize this bootcamp now that the Twitch streams are over is the best thing is probably just to check out the YouTube. I just added a command that will give you the link there. The YouTube is where all the past recordings will be found. So if you go through all of those, that will give you like a comprehensive view of the bootcamp. But you're absolutely right. I do need to update the Notion. So thank you for the reminder there. I will get around to that. Is all the materials resources there? I would say right now all the materials and resources are in the Discord. If you use the ! Discord command, that will give you the link to our Discord. In the announcements channel, if you scroll up, that's where you can find all the slides. I know it's not the best place right now, but we're working on getting all those links also on the YouTube videos. So I guess for now, YouTube and Discord are your best bets for getting the whole big picture. But in the future, like in a week or so, we're gonna do our job to try to keep everything on YouTube so that you don't have to always join the Discord. But yeah, I think let me see. Yeah, I probably definitely should update that Notion page. I haven't touched it in a while, long time. Whoopsies, it's the wrong slide. All right, cool. If there's no more questions, then yeah, I don't want to say like this is it because we're still going to be in this Discord. I definitely want you to still use this as a resource, like ask us questions or DM me directly if you want any like feedback or anything particular. We're still going to be around, but for now, like this is the end of the boot camp. So we are going to be trying to re-upload videos on YouTube and create more content for learning how to code. But for now, like for the Twitch sessions, I think this is the end of it. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you so much to everyone that's been with us from even not from day one, but just like anybody who's joined us along the way, anyone who's still here at this point. Thank you so much for following along. I got so much more interest on this than I ever thought I would. And it makes me so happy just to see how far you guys have come. Seeing how in the beginning, like starting from HTML, CSS all the way to now, using kind of like the latest and greatest technologies. It's just, it's just so awesome to see, and it makes me really happy. And yeah, let's stay in touch. I mean, chances are a lot of you are in the Discord, so definitely keep around there. But I also attached my LinkedIn here. I can post this in the chat. Attach my LinkedIn and Twitter if you do want to kind of keep in touch there. Like I said, if you do end up building your big project and want me to signal boost, like happy to do that. Even though I don't have the biggest audience, I'll do whatever I can. But yeah, that's basically it, y'all. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate everyone sticking around here. This is not the end for sure. You know, this is just the end of the, I guess, the curriculum, like the material per se. But now it's up to y'all to kind of take everything that you've been given and you know, put it together in your own cool projects and maybe even go and venture into the field. So yeah, thank you so much. I guess I should have had a real speech plan, but that's kind of all I got for you guys. So yeah, thank you guys, and let me know if there's any final questions. If not, we can start winding down here. We probably will do more streams in the future, so I'll drop something in Discord about our plans for that. But for now, this concludes our web dev coding bootcamp. All right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate y'all sticking around, and yeah, best of luck on job search or building your projects. And really, yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. This is not the end. You know, this is not goodbye. This is just the end of the material. So yeah, let's keep in touch, guys. All right, I'm going to start signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Oh, I have some exciting news this year, but I don't want to spoil anything yet. So I will be posting about it in Discord the next few days. So keep an eye out for that. Oh no, don't cry. I know it's I'm gonna cry too. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much. I will see y'all later. Yeah, we'll ping y'all when the VODs and everything's updated. But yeah, catch y'all later. Bye.